Stop thinking of these things as things that you need to change or things that are hindering you. Because if you needed to be another way, God would have made sure that you were that way in order to produce the thing that He wants you to lead the thing that He wants you to come up with the thing that is your calling on this side of heaven or what have you. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Yes, I still have some Christmas stuff here on the table behind me. It is that weird week right now between Christmas and New Year's where like you don't know what day it is, you don't know when the last time you washed your hair is, you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, but we've done a million puzzles here at the Allwood house. We've watched a bunch of really bad movies. There's just not a lot of good movies and things out online right now. We did get into Landman. Maybe it's on Paramount. I'm not sure, but one of those series. It's okay. Just saying it's okay. So that's kind of been good, but otherwise it's that weird week, you know? But I did need to do a podcast in this weird week. So you're getting kind of if you're watching on YouTube, it's me being dressed down. Um, I've got a stain on the front of my sweatshirt. I don't know, hair's up, and this is what it is, which kind of leads me to the topic of the podcast, which I want to talk today. If you are a woman who's in business, I want to talk about whether or not you are a tornado or a hurricane in business. Okay. And I had never heard of this concept before, but I coached with someone a few years ago. And I'll tell you about that in just a second. And he was the one that brought that up to me. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. And last week, or was it the week before? Again, we're in that weird time of year where time is like it's elusive. I just don't know when it even is. But the last coaching call I had of 2024, it was a one-on-one coaching call with one of our clients, and we were talking about her goals for this next year, and in particular, quarter ones, because we try to break things down into quarters. So anyway, she had said that one of her goals for this next quarter is for her to stop procrastinating. And I said to her, I wanted to challenge her just a little bit, and I said, is you procrastinating? Sorry, I knew that was going to fall over. I knew that was going to fall over. I literally have my notes sitting below me right now on my phone because I'm trying something different. Clearly, it's not working quite like I want it to, but we're just going with it. Anyway, so I said to her, is you thinking that you're procrastinating actually a bad thing? Because I love to push back when women think that, because they're a certain way that that's wrong. And I'm like, but it's actually not. I have done two podcasts. I think it was in September. You can literally Google Jennifer Allwood podcast. I wrote it down. It's 471 and 472. And they are two podcasts that I did talking about, is procrastination like your superpower, or is it actually hindering you in business? Okay. Because I'm someone that works well only last minute. If I have to write a keynote speech weeks in advance, it's going to be trash. If I write it the night before, it's going to be fabulous. When I used to go on live television, the only reason I would be good on live television, what is happening with my hair, is because um, I'm last minute, and people that speak often for a living are last minute people. Okay. So I was challenging her, and I was like, but do you actually need to quit procrastinating, or is the fact that you work last minute a superpower? So you can go Google, like I said, Jennifer Allwood podcast, 471, 472, and it'll talk about that being a superpower. So the part of the conversation I want to tell you about is that I was being reminded when I spoke to her, though, of kind of a flip side to that. Because on one hand, I think that it can be a superpower for you to do things last minute. I totally think that that can be a superpower. But then on the other hand, I was being reminded of some coaching I did with a guy, okay, a couple of years ago. Um, and so let me tell you about that. Let me go back to my notes here on my phone. So 2 years ago, I did some coaching with a gentleman named Lyle Wells, and you can find him on Instagram. His Instagram, I believe, is Lead with Lyle. And Lyle does like executive leadership coaching. He coaches like a lot of high level executives. He coaches a lot of, I think, people that are military, a lot of people in pastoral positions. He's got a fascinating background. And so I don't know if he even still does this type of coaching anymore, but I loved working with him, and hired him just to do some coaching with myself and my team. Okay. So he basically like he'll take the CEO, the entrepreneur, the visionary, me, and he gave me a quiz both about myself and then like the ladies on my leadership team, the four women or the three women with me because there was a team of four of us on the leadership team. So it was a quiz where we all like quizzed on ourselves, so it's introspective, and then we also took a quiz where we were like using words to describe the other people on the team, and Lyle had like this fascinating way of combining all the results into some who knows what, and then it comes up with some like magical feedback. Okay. And so he's trying basically to teach leaders to lead well and teaching you different ways of making sure that you're compatible with your team and that you're working with your team in a way that's going to hopefully get you guys the very, very best results for your business. Okay. And so if you have followed me for any length of time on social media, you know that I have kind of prided myself in being a hot mess express. Don't type that out in a hashtag because it does still look like hot mess express. When I noticed that, now I just can't unsee it. It was years ago I figured that out. If you hashtag hot mess express, it looks like hashtag hot mess sex press. And I'm like, that's not the hashtag I'm going for. So anyhow, but I have talked to those of you who are kind of wired like me in that you are a visionary, you're the entrepreneur, you're a hot mess, you've got a very creative brain. In addition, I have talked incessantly about women who are in menopause and just having lots and lots of ideas and just the chaotic mind of a female woman who's an entrepreneur in general. Okay. And I've coached thousands and thousands of women who are very chaotic in nature, some creative, some not, who have lots of ideas, who have a very difficult time focusing, who usually a lot of times think there's something wrong with them. And here's what I always tell them, like, do you know how many people there are in this world that wish that they had an idea? And like God has gifted you with a brain that has what you think are too many ideas. You have a hard time picking one, but the majority of the people that I personally know, they can't even come up with one idea. You've got 20 and you're just needing to pick. So like it's a lot of fun to have a chaotic brain, to have a very creative mind, to have lots and lots of ideas. And I've always tried to persuade women who I'm coaching, like, stop thinking of these things as things that you need to change or things that are hindering you. Because if you needed to be another way, God would have made sure that you were that way in order to produce the thing that He wants you to lead the thing that He wants you to come up with the thing that is your calling on the side of heaven or what have you. And so I've really tried hard to try to encourage women to stop thinking that they need to be a different way. Okay. So I just want to say that like at the beginning. And part of being an entrepreneur is being a visionary. Part of being a visionary means you have some vision, you have some thoughts, you have some ideas. So most CEOs, most entrepreneurs, most people who are in positions such as myself, we're idea people, which is why we need to surround ourselves with people who can help execute those ideas. Okay. So I'm working with Lyle and have my team working with Lyle 2 years ago because I want to make sure that I am leading my team in a way that is good for both them and for me. Like, how can I make sure that I'm running this company in a way? And by the way, this is a podcast for you to still listen to, even if it's just you, because I want you to be thinking about what you need to do now when it's just you, because it's not always, I'm going to prophesy over you right now. It's not always going to be just you. When your business grows, you're going to have you and a VA, you and possibly a project manager, you and an assistant, you and an executive assistant, you and a director of operations, you and somebody that's in charge of sales and marketing. So like you need to be forward thinking. Okay. And so we're working with Lyle, we're taking the tests, all the things. And basically, here's what Lyle came back and said to me when I met with him on a one-on-one basis later. First of all, he was very complimentary. Not that any of this matters for this podcast episode, but especially in how I work with Nell, my director of operations, that the two of us together are like the perfect marriage in business between a director of ops and like the CEO and the person that basically is running the company behind the scenes. Okay, which is what Nell does. So he's like, the two of you have like a perfect marriage, but he did well because like he led with compliments first and then gave me the things that I really need to work on. And I'm like, okay. So here's what he said, that some of you are going to hear this for the first time and you're going to be like, oh my goodness, I do the same thing and I never thought of that. But he said, basically, Jennifer, when it comes to business, you tend to be a tornado. And he said, but what your team really needs for you to be is a hurricane. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna need some explanation, okay? And what's funny is like I grew up in rural Iowa, so the idea of hurricanes was foreign to me, but tornadoes we were so familiar with. Our little town of Mobile, Iowa, hit several times with tornadoes. Now we live in Kansas City, which is like, there's tornadoes coming through every year. But oddly enough, you guys, in the last year in 2024, I was asking a couple of my girlfriends, like, do you remember hardly getting any tornado warnings, sirens, tornado watches at all this year? I mean, maybe I have blanked it out. Maybe I have, literally had a blip in my memory and we had a bunch, but I don't recall 2024 having any tornadic activity. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but I like to use stuff that I make up and just claim it as such. So I don't remember tornadic activity in Kansas City in 2024. Okay. But I grew up in Iowa, so I'm familiar with tornadoes. I live in Kansas City, familiar with tornadoes. And now Jason and I have just purchased our second Airbnb in Florida. So in addition to Bougie on the Beach, which is on 30A, we also have Bougie on Miramar Beach, which is the Destin area. And so we're getting very familiar now with hurricanes. We've owned the first one for 3 years. This last one we just closed on Halloween. And so, there have been many hurricane warnings. Jason had to go down last year and check on Bougie on the Beach and make sure it was okay. We literally only got a couple sprinkles, but so anyhow, but we're getting more used to like when you own a property in Florida, you just have to become more knowledgeable about hurricanes. Okay. So I understand that as well. The difference is with a tornado, like they come in, like a wrecking ball. They come in rather quickly. A lot of times you're not sure like where they're going to hit. You can be warned, that day or the day before, but it's not like you have weeks of notice, but you do have just a little bit of notice. But then sometimes it's very unpredictable, right? So there's sometimes when, the county that we currently live in is under a tornado watch, and yet at the last minute the tornado turns because again, unpredictable, and it hits somewhere else, but it can be devastating. You guys, just absolutely devastating. And it turns quickly and on a dime, and it's terrifying. Okay. So a hurricane, is different in that what I've seen, especially, since we've had these properties in Florida, is that a lot of times it's a couple weeks in advance that murmurings start happening. Hey, we're kind of watching something, out of the Pacific right now. Wait, is it the Pacific or would it be the Atlantic? Dun, 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 dun. Do you know one of the only classes that I was at risk of failing was geography? Um, I just feel like every way I face is north. Every way I face is north. So, like right now, I'm trying to imagine a map, and Florida's on the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll say that. We're going to not say Pacific or Atlantic. We're going to say Gulf of Mexico because in my head, I'm like, which one is near Florida? I don't recall. And I don't care because I'm smart in other areas. Okay. So, they'll start talking about there's activity we're watching in the Gulf of Mexico weeks in advance. There's several people we follow, on Instagram. Mike somebody is amazing. If you don't know who that is, let me know. If you're watching me on YouTube right now, just comment below and I can send you his link. But anyhow, there are people that are watching it and they're watching it closely and they're tracking and they're looking at what's happening. They're developing plans. They're giving lots of updates. They're coming in and they're saying, okay, this is what's happened. And now we think that we need to progress to not only is this something we're watching, but now we're going to give it a name. We're also going to declare that it is right now at a level 1 or 2 or cat 3 or whatever. And then they start predicting of where it's going to hit and who they think needs to be really watching this. They start talking about, if you need to get out of the area, evacuation routes, what you need to do to prepare to evacuate, all those things. There's lots and lots of time leading up to the actual time the hurricane usually hits land. Okay. So what Lyle said is, Jennifer, you come in like a tornado, meaning you come in fast and furious with your ideas and with your thoughts. And what your team actually needs is you to be more of a hurricane. So as powerful, okay, as it can still have the same like effect in terms of really impacting a lot. But there's like a softer, gentler lead in where there's lots of time to prepare, lots of watching, lots of planning. And although the impact can be as great, a tornado hurricane is going to be devastating, but in business, it's not hopefully going to be devastating. But he's like, you come in one way and your team needs you to come in another. You guys, since we had that conversation 2 years ago, I have thought of that 100 times. Because there are times like right now in that crazy week between Christmas and New Year's where I'm having ideas upon ideas upon ideas for business. And I'm having to stop myself from literally voxering my team 10 times a day because I'm trying to give them the time off over the holidays that they both want. And also, I think that they need and deserve. And so, like the amount of ideas though that I have, if I was to be giving them to them as they come into my brain, that's tornadic activity. What I'm trying really hard to do is to be more of a hurricane, which means like right now I'm making notes in my phone. And I will wait until it's like an appropriate time to where I can talk to them to give them all of my ideas. So that's going to be after the holidays. But I want to read to you some of my notes, okay? Because for those of you who are like me and you're very chaotic, you have a lot of ideas, you have lots of words, you want to overshare. I want you to know that there's still nothing wrong with that. However, your delivery method may need to be different. And when it's just you, I think it's okay. Unless it's really affecting your clients. But when you begin to have a team, then you really need to start thinking and executing things just a little bit differently. Okay. So because I'm chaotic, I'm going back to my notes so I don't miss this. Okay. I'm chaotic, but my team needs order. That's the bottom line. I'm a hot mess. They need order. They need a plan. They need strategy. Okay. So when it comes to that analogy of the tornado versus a hurricane in business, it's really talking about the difference in approach, the difference in focus, and then also hopefully the difference in impact. Okay. Tornadoes, they are quick, they are immediate, intense impact. But a lot of times they just leave things in utter disarray. You can imagine like pictures of, even if you don't live anywhere close to a tornado or you've never experienced that, you can imagine, the disarray, the little time to plan for anything, that you didn't have time to even grab anything before you got to a tornado shelter because things, they happen so quickly. The good news is if you're someone like me who's wired like a tornado, the good news of that is that you are a really fast decision maker, which I believe that I am. You have very high energy, which I do most of the time. And you have a really strong, like relentless drive to get short-term goals like put into place or to make sure you're turning things around really rapidly, et cetera, et cetera. So those are all good things about being the tornado, okay? But what he was saying, and what I've done upon further research, looking back at my notes with Lyle, is that people that are like tornadoes in business, we really run the risk of burnout, and I can attest to that. We really have a fragmented focus, which example A right here. And a lot of times we do unintentional harm to our team or to our long-term vision and plans because we're so excited about like the here and now and the next shiny penny, new idea, disco ball that we have. Does that make sense? And he said, tornadoes are really unpredictable. And a lot of times they're very abrupt and it's hard for others to like kind of follow that and to be able to prepare for that. Now, as the CEO, like I want my team to be willing to follow me, to trust my vision, to want to come along on the ride that I have. And so if I'm super unpredictable and chaotic, it does make the people who are with you, it's harder a lot of times for them to be able to partner with that. Because a lot of times that tornadic activity creates fear and confusion. And that can really carry over, by the way, also to your clients. Okay. So what he was saying was, Jennifer, I really want you to work more on being a tornado or a hurricane, which is you're more deliberate. Things, they develop more gradually, but they're very often more sustainable with impact over time. He was talking about, that there is so much um, value to having patience in business and having like a strategic thinking. It'll help me to maintain momentum over time versus just like right now. He was talking about, how hurricanes really are tracked and that their movements are often tracked and how that sort of tracking really is so much like it's so helpful in business too. We're going back in 2025 to like a different style of our team meetings where we're tracking more things. Nell's really bringing back the whole EOS model of tracking where we've got things that we're all responsible for, numbers that we're really going to look more at that because the truth is we've just gotten away from it. Like we did well 2 years ago when I was coaching with Lyle, we've really gotten away from that. And I think that in 2025, for those of you that didn't have the results in 2024 that you wanted, and by the way, that's me, you're going to need to get back to a more hurricane type of planning, thinking and execution, which is going to require more strategy, more reminders, reminding yourself of what like the long-term focus is and the long-term goal. And are the things that you're doing and putting into place in 2025 supporting that, or are they taking away from that? I just think that that's super duper important. And so, he was just talking about when you have a hurricane, like movements are then more anticipated. Where the hurricane goes, like the models all can kind of anticipate based on previous, hurricanes, how something's going to move, grow, dissipate, etc. And like your team, my team needs that as well. They need like just that slower roll in so that they have the ability to pace with me and to be able to over time really it will produce like more trust in me, I think, as a leader, because they understand that even though Jen wants to do this, she's holding herself back and moving like that. Does that make sense? If you're watching on YouTube, will you please like comment below and just tell me that this is relatable? So in terms of like other things that I can do, should do, you can do, should do, if you're a tornado and really see the value in moving to more of a hurricane, slow down. Okay, slow down, map things out differently, have some long term goals. I know that Nell next week is doing a planning session for 2025. I think, I think you can go to jenniferallwoodlinks.com/planning session. Okay, I'm going to say that again, jenniferallwoodlinks.com/planning session. And you'll be able to get that recording if you're somebody that really wants to have a plan for 2025. It will help you to be less of a tornado, more of a hurricane. Okay. Making that shift really helps you to get away from like reactive decision making and being more like a proactive leader. Like instead of playing just like defense, being more on the offensive. And I think that in 2025, you and I, as business owners, are going to need to do more of that. I felt like in 2024 that I really was very reactive on a lot of things. And the truth is, I didn't like it. I didn't like how I was doing that. In fact, I'm thinking about, I am making an audible. This is me being a tornado right now. Okay. Do as I say, not as I do. But I'm sitting here thinking, I almost wonder if I should do a podcast for you guys on like 5 things I wish I had done differently last year in business. That 5 things that I kind of sucked it up over on 2024. Let's see, that I did poorly. There you go. I'm writing myself a note. If you're interested in that, let me know down below here on YouTube, okay? But prioritizing coming in slower and having more deliberate efforts, I know for me are just like top of the things that I'm planning on doing in 2025 so that we are more strategic as a team, so that there's more team unity, so that I'm not wearing them out, wearing them down, etc. I really think that becoming more like a hurricane, it just amplifies like your effectiveness because you have better strategy, better clarity, better collaboration, etc. So, you know, I go back to that conversation with Lyle, and he gave me a whole lot of positives first, and then again, he was like, Jennifer, you really like to come in as a tornado, but your team, they need you to be more of a hurricane. And as I'm thinking forward and planning for 2025, I'm trying to keep that like at the front of my brain here, on my frontal lobe, of like, how can I not inundate my team with ideas, but be more strategic, lead them in a better way? Which isn't to say that I'm not going to give them 5,000 ideas, but I'm just going to give that to them in a different way. And also try really hard to remember what the overall focus of this company is, what our overall, what is the point of coaching with Team Allwood? What do I feel like God's calling me to in this season? And are all of my ideas lining up with that? And that's really going to be, one of the measuring sticks in terms of what we're doing in 2025 and what we're rolling out to you guys as clients and what we're doing as a team. So I hope this was helpful for somebody. In my head, I keep thinking so many of you are like me in that you've got a very chaotic brain and you've thought it's bad. And I've worked for years on my social media to try to convince people, no, it's not bad, it's good. However, but even good things need to be like dialed in. Um, because like, what's that saying? Okay, I'm going off on a tangent here, but like power under restraint is, what's the saying? Let me think. Something about power under restraint is the true sign of leadership or something. I'm gonna have to look that up. But anyhow, so again, not getting rid of all of our ideas, but just figuring out how do we roll those out, how do we share those with the people on our team, with the people that we're working with the correct amount of restraint to not overwhelm the other people that we're working with, but that we're all working towards the same goals together. So hopefully this was a beneficial podcast to you. If it was, I want you to do me a solid. I want you to just forward it to business owner friends that you know, to women who you know who are very chaotic in the brain also, and hopefully it will help them. And I'd love it if they hit subscribe on the podcast. If you do not hit subscribe, I wish that you would. And if you don't already follow me and watch this podcast on YouTube, you should, because turns out I'm funny. So, okay, bless you, my friends. Happy 2025. It's here. This is our year. Love to you all. Bye bye. Easton, that was the corniest ending I ever had. 2025 is here. I mean, duh. And the truth is, this podcast could be coming out in February. I don't even know. And here I am acting like it's January 1. Ugh.